Nothing better than 3 o'clock coffee. Happy Friday, y'all. It's Lippy. I promised y'all this recipe from the other day. What was it? Monday, I did stuffed zucchini. Well, we're doing stuffed yellow squash. You can do squash. You can do zucchini. I happen to have yellow squash. And I'm using from Mr. Eddie over at Poor Boy's Little Homestead. He brought us a big bag. He didn't realize I had an abundance of squash. So I gave my sister the fresh squash yesterday, and we're using Mr. Eddie's. So we're going to do this recipe. And like I said, you can use zucchini, but this is a great, great summer dish. And it'll feed quite a bit, and it also freezes well. Now, we will be using rice. You can exchange the rice for cauliflower rice if you're trying to go, what is that? Keto. So you can use cauliflower rice. Also, the meat I am using is ground pork. We prefer that over ground beef. And I'll also be using a hot breakfast sausage, but I'll give you the amounts when we get to the stove. So you could do this in ground beef. You can do this in pork, chicken, whatever, in a ground form. We personally just like pork, and also we're using the hot breakfast sausage. It comes in a pound tube. I'm using a half a pound. Now that the kids are not here, we're fixing to throw some heat to this. So I need to drop the camera because I got to show you what I did, because this is important. Remember, 375 preheat your oven. Now all I did was wash the squash, scooped the seeds out, and you see I left a lot of the meat, the flesh of the squash, because we're going to eat the whole thing. So you make sure that you wash them very well. So all I did was core out the seeds. And that's it. Now, we're going to put olive oil all over them and rub them together. Looks like a lot. It's not. And then I'm just going to massage these well. Now I'm doing this in a 9x13 dish because it has a cover, and I can set it in the refrigerator and we can just heat it up. But this also freezes well. In this skillet, I've got a half a pound of hot breakfast sausage, and I've got about a pound of ground pork. All right, I'm sitting on a high heat. 1 large diced bell pepper. I'm using a mixture between orange, yellow, and red, and 1 large sweet onion. And yes, I'm putting it in now, even though the meat is not fully cooked, because I do want to draw some liquid out of these vegetables. This is when I like to season it up. I'm using my voodoo dust. You can use any seasoning you like. I'm also using a little bit of ground celery. If you don't have any ground celery, you could use about a stalk of celery diced very fine. I'm adding some salt, a little coarse black pepper, a tablespoon of minced garlic. Now you see I'm throwing everything in at the start. I just added a little of my Cajun swamp mix. And that's all the seasoning we're going to add. Let me turn my heat down to medium. Okay, we've got our well. We're going to add about a tablespoon of tomato paste. You want to cook this tomato paste some. That's why I keep it in the well and I just mash it. Oh, I can smell the sweetness now. Now I'm going to come in with liquid aminos. You can use soy sauce. And that's going to pick up all them bits. About the same amount of Worcestershire. Oh, this smells amazing. Okay, we are good. We'll turn the heat off. And in this pot, I have some cooked rice. And as soon as it finishes, which it's almost done, I will add, and we'll measure it because I don't know how much I'm going to add. I can tell by eyesight, and I'll let y'all know an estimate. But like I said, you can use the ground, what is that? The frozen cauliflower. Fly. But while we're letting everything kind of cool down, oh boy, I made a mess of this stove. Anyway, I got a story to tell y'all. Let me move y'all. There you go. That corner of that vent was messing with me. Oops. It ain't a Lippy video without some kind of boo-boo. Okay. This was, I think, Tuesday. Now, a lot of you know the grandson, Mo. Well, he has him a tadpole pond in one of them old totes. And he feeds his tadpoles cucumbers. You got to take the peeling off. You just set a little ring down in there and they feed off of it. Well, now he also has a worm bed. I'm talking big old worms. Well, I was talking to Miss Ree, and he said afterwards, I thought you was talking to Miss Allison. Well, I was talking to Miss Ree on Marco. And I saw him out the back, you know, I'm looking in the camera, I was talking. I could see him back there, so I wasn't paying much attention. I knew he was right behind me. And all of a sudden, I see him walking up, because, you know, y'all know he likes to talk. But when he got, and I'm sitting in a chair, so when he got about here, he had to have pulled the biggest worm I had ever seen. He had to pull the biggest one. And I'm not realizing until I'm actually looking in the camera, he's dangling. Hey, look at my worm. Y'all, it was bopping on my head. I said, boy, get that worm out of here. He got to giggling, so he took off. Well, I got off the Marco, and he says, what did Miss Allison say about the worm? I said, that was Miss Ree on the phone. He said, well, I just wanted Miss Allison to see my worm. I said, well, we can call and show her your worm. He said, yeah, it's our secret. Okay, after you done let the worm get in my head and poop on my head, he thought that was just the funniest thing. But y'all, I'm sitting there, I ain't paying no attention. I'm thinking he's showing it, right? I ain't realized he was back here. I said, oh my God. Papa come in, I said, you know, it's hard having boys, ain't it? And he just grinned. I said, y'all difficult. Y'all get into everything. And he just died laughing. All right, I got to let this cool. Now, this is when you could really preheat your oven. I just preheated mine earlier. So I'm going to let it cool maybe 5 minutes. Because I don't want to go in too hot in my squash. I want it to kind of all cook together. And I'll tell you how long. I'm thinking 30 minutes. But the best way to check it is when that squash is fork tender. Because remember, we're eating the whole thing. Okay, we're ready for the rice. It's only been about 5 minutes. So that would be 1/4 of a cup. 1/2 a cup. There's 3/4. It's actually like 1.5 cups. Oh, that's a good solid cup. Now we're going to see. Because any rice I have left over, I'm just going to put it in the icebox. We'll have that with breakfast. Yes, I love rice with breakfast. I'm going to add a little bit more. And I normally cook 3 cups at a time when I cook rice. So I always have plenty left over. Oh, yeah. That's perfect. Because you don't want too much rice because then it's going to dry out. All right, we got to move over there and get these things stuffed. Okay, I'm just going to start filling them in. And I call it stuffing. I kind of mash it down. But anything left over, we're just going to cover the whole thing. Still warm. Because that cheese, once we get the cheese on, literally, it's almost going to glue the stuffing to the vegetable. So you can take your spatula and when you scoop up, you'll get a solid vegetable. Now I'm gonna just sprinkle this all over. Okay, I've got it good and covered. That looks good. Now I'm gonna cover mine with aluminum foil. I've got the shiny side in. We're gonna start at the 30-minute mark, then go into the pan, go in the oven, and test it with a fork. When it's fork tender, that's when we're gonna take the cover off, and we're gonna add grated cheese. Now I grated a pound. I may not use the whole pound. Whatever's left, I just put it into the ice box. And then you're gonna put it back in the oven, which I'll show y'all, until the cheese melts, about 10 minutes. And guys, this, a sliced tomato, a salad, or just this by itself, I mean, you saw, it's so easy to do. And it allows you another recipe for your squash and your zucchini, because if you're like me, they're kind of coming out of the ears. So, in the oven, 375. It took about 40 minutes. So now we're just gonna cover it with cheese and put some everywhere else. I let my cheese sit out and kind of clumped on me, but I'll probably end up using the whole little block. That looks even. Back in the oven just long enough to melt the cheese, 5 to 10 minutes. It was in 5 minutes, just long enough to melt the cheese. And just, ooh, that's hot. And just like that, it's quality control. Y'all, and I let it cool. But look at those pieces of squash. See that? It's smoking hot. I got my jalapeno relish going. About 8 more minutes. Then I'll move to that tub of cucumbers. Right now, I want to sample this. Actually, I'm just going to eat the whole plate. But I want a little bit of everything. The squash, the meat, the rice. It ain't going to be too hot. I don't know what to tell y'all. This is absolutely incredible. The squash is tender. The squash almost has like a sweetness, not a sugar, but a sweetness. Guys, this is what you do. That's a big bite with your squash and zucchini. Now that is sauce bon. And it's even better the next day. This is one to try. So, the next video will be garden update, which will be Sunday. Tomorrow, we're going down to Ed Lester's. And then I've got to call my little farmer that's up in North Bossier in Louisiana and see what he has, because I've told you a lot of times what we don't grow or grow enough of, we always outsource, help the local farmers, and then I come home and process and put everything up. So I may do a video tomorrow, us traveling down to get our vegetables that we don't grow. We do this every year, and it helps them out, it helps me out. Y'all, this is staring me in the face. It's so good. So we may do that tomorrow, but definitely Sunday for garden update. We do have some storms coming in tomorrow. They're calling for hail. I'm praying not, but we're in the yellow. We're not in the red, but we're at the 15 where the red is, I think, is at 20. So we're close. But still, hell is hell. You know what I mean? But as always, stay safe, stay well, and God bless. And say a prayer for everyone in the path of these storms coming through tomorrow. Until the next one, y'all.